Economic and political uncertainty was once considered as one of investors' greatest concerns. In approaching the presidential election, investment growth this year was predicted to remain stable. On the other hand, the transition to a new government hopefully will not affect the investment climate in Indonesia, especially in preparing to face ASEAN Economic Community in 2015. Before talking more about this, let's take a look at this one.
Bank Indonesia tetap mempertahankan suku bunga acuan atau BI rate di level 7,5%. Bank Indonesia menilai proses penyesuaian ekonomi berjalan cukup baik, meskipun terdapat sejumlah resiko yang perlu diwaspadai dan
To discuss more about investment climate in political year, we have Mr. Ariana Nur Akbar from Monex Investindo Futures. Hello, Pak. How are you? How are you, Mr. Ariana?
Good, thank you.
You're good. Okay. let's get straight into the questions.
All right.
With many political agenda this year of presidential election, do you think it will affect investment climate in Indonesia in general?
In general, yes, it does. But certainly, we have some worries that this uncertainty will create something that we cannot expect. Because this uncertainty will create more problems if we can handle it or overcome it by loosening up a little bit about the bureaucracy.
Loosen up a bit
Yes.
about the bureaucracy.
Yes.
Okay, at this situation, what should be done by government to make investment climate in Indonesia more conducive?
Okay, this is about bureaucracies, so you have to make it simple. You have to be open, more transparencies on that one, of course. And that is more attractive by showing that we are opening ourselves to new foreign investments well. And also by showing that we have demand on that industry, this kind.
Okay, you mentioned the word attractive previously.
Yes.
How do you make it attractive, I mean, with such climate?
It is climate. Of course, we have to see some factors. We have to consider that during these uncertainties, there is always opportunities. Meaning that how to become attractive is we have to consider ourselves that compared to other countries in Asia, especially in Asia or Southeast Asia, that we are indeed the big population. Means in relation we have more demand. So how to make it attractive? By showing that we have the good infrastructure, the losing bureaucracies, and other things that the government will show up by statistics or reports showing to the international that, okay, this is attractive because we have the demand. Due on the population, we have the GDP, we have the capita, we have the more labor, we have the more sources that we have compared to other countries.
Compared to other countries?
Yes.
Okay, oh, that's good. Talking about transparency, you mentioned transparency previously. How transparent are we in the eyes of the foreign investors?
How transparent? Well, I would say it is not too transparent.
Within the scale of 1 to 10?
I'd say 6.
6?
Yes.
Which is only average?
Only average. Yes, because we can see that it is hard to enter the Indonesian market if we do not, let's say, affiliate with the locals. Which means we have to dependable on them. Soon, when we have the connections, relations, and all of this will maintain, then I think we can handle the market.
Okay. Now, talking about limiting the foreign investment, do you think this is a thing to do by the government?
This is, I think, the factor of nationalism. So that we have to rely on ourselves. That is, as you know, we have the ban for raw materials to be exported.
Exactly.
Which means that we have to increase our productivity. We have the resources, the laborers. So why do we have to export it rather than use it in production, then send it in export?
But do you think the labor skills and also the competencies of the laborers in Indonesian workers, are they enough to create such products?
Well, indeed. But by seeing that we are lack of qualities, we have to depend on quantities.
Like lacking of qualities, we have to depend on quantities.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good idea. How do you think is this the ideal formulation or proportion between domestic and foreign investment?
I think we have to concentrate on the local first. So we have to see that is there any investment for foreign investment or foreign investors looking up to the demand here, then we are showing that we are good enough for them. So the proportion between the local and the foreign investment, it should be like, in my opinion, statistically of course, it should be like 70 to 30.
70 to 30.
To 30. But without any ceteris paribus, the factors that affect this investment, I think we have to consider any capital expenditures that have to be consumed by the foreign investors into Indonesia. Seems the uncertainties is still hanging on or remaining right now. We have to consider that factor.
Okay. Talking about local partners, you mentioned earlier about having a local partner for the foreign investors, right? Do you think how easy would this be for them?
Easy. I think...
And what are the challenges to find the right local partners for investors?
Well, this is about two parties. Means that we have to open up the communications and relationship first.
That's right.
Before talking straight to business. Then after that, we can use this target, communicating about the bureaucracies, what about the regulations, who will be taking care of it, this kind of things of business.
Okay. As we can see in the presidential debate, one candidate is saying that, one candidate, not all candidates, okay? One candidate is saying that the problem with foreign investments is that they are centralized in big cities and the flow on investment itself is not directed towards the rural areas. What should be done about this in your opinion?
It should be decentralized because if we just concentrating on one cities, for example, of course, Jakarta, it should be like the regulations or the regulator post on that one, but the using of production or productivity should be spread out, depending on the countries or the cities. So, for example, in Sumatra, we still have more sources that has not been explored. We have to make it optimized. Whose job is this, do you think? Is this the central government job, or do you think is this a job that should be spread with the local government? This is both. This is both. So I think the central government should be maintaining the target, use the regulations, and apply that to the local government, then have communications, sit down together, make the appropriate regulations, talk about the targets again on the productivity and what should they do about it. But then what are the incentives that the government should provide for big companies to invest in other areas outside the central cities? Of course, infrastructure, the labor regulations, especially what I had before, historically, that a good investment within a country, you have to put an incentive, that is tax incentive. So every time a foreigner or a foreign investors, foreign company getting inside Indonesia, they will have this kind of tax incentive, because a tax incentive in financial statement always be an interesting point. Tax incentives, you say? Tax incentive. Okay, then talk about the UMP or the minimum wages requirement. Let's say in Central Java, sometimes some companies do invest in cosmetics over there due to lower minimum wages. Do you think this is an attractive incentive for them? Yes, of course. Because it means they have to lower expense. But then are the labor competencies similar to the ones in bigger cities? Well, we have to reallocate the place of production, yes. How is this feasible? Well, it depends on the industry itself. If we are talking about automotive, this is a big industry. Exactly. So we have to see what kind of labor that we have to use on that one, and then what kind of resources that we can use. Rather than using, if compared to agriculture industries, there will be different maintenance on that one. Should be like, okay, this is automotive. Don't reallocate the company within, such as rural areas. Should be like out of rural areas. Okay. In the local government. And for agriculture, of course, we have to use land, other things. Exactly. So again, it depends on the industry itself. Yes. Okay. We'll discuss more about this in later segment, Mr. Ariana. Okay. We'll be right back with more discussion. Please stay tuned.
Welcome back. Our discussion is about investment climate in political year, and we still have Mr. Ariana Nur Akbar from Monex Investindo Futures. Okay, Mr. Ariana, let's talk about the electricity. Now, impact of electricity tariff increase for the industry, rupiah fluctuation. What do you think about this?
This, we still have to think of this kind of factors because it is important. The electricity tariff, of course, for this industry, for the fabrication's productivity, it means a lot. It means that they have to increase their budget on that. They have to increase the budget for the labor, the standard salary, right? So, in terms of getting inside industry in Indonesia, that is why I say we have to maintain the tax incentive. Because these kind of factors that influencing the industry is well spread and almost the same, the amount, almost the same. So the thing that we cannot change, we should maintain it low, as low as we can get, yes, possible, of course, and give something out. That is why I said we have these tax incentives.
Okay.
Means that, okay, we have the problems. It's not a problem. It is, let's just say it's systematical risk that we cannot attain this risk. We cannot erase this risk. But we have to give more by using incentive.
Again, it's coming back to tax incentives.
Yes.
Okay, then more about rupiah fluctuation. If you can see that in 2013 and 2014, the rupiah changes volatilely. And as compared to other countries, what do you think?
Compared to other countries, this is about fluctuations of the currencies. So this is not about the foreign doing, but this is how the foreign sees us.
Okay.
What about the currency? What about rupiah? So is this a matter of long term or short term? I think we have to maintain this as long term. Because as well as dollar, it fluctuates as well in rupiah. But then we have to maintain the economy. I mean, like, we have the investment grade. But then if we think, if the rupiah still fluctuates very volatile, means that they have to readjust the budget as well, as many as they can get. This is a problem. Okay. So we have to make a certain limit on the volatility of rupiah. The government should do something about it. We have to impress the foreign investors, the foreign company that, okay, we have this volatile currency, but we have these limitations. Let's say the upper limit is 13,000 against USD, but the lower should be like 10,000. So it shows that even though we are volatile, we have limits. Don't worry about getting wilder than it should be.
So setting limitation is the key,
Yes.
Okay, coming back about electricity. Some says that the electricity in Indonesia is not even stable. It's still, there's still some blackouts that happens in some days. And is it a challenge for companies in manufacturing industries, for example?
Yes, of course. But, okay, depending on that one, I think there is always a solution on that. So we have to suggest solar panel, water, power, electricity.
Exactly.
We have all the resources. So what the government should do, in my opinion, is that give them incentive to build that.
Incentives to build solar panels, but then it is an extra charge.
Indeed.
Extra cost.
But still, if they have to remain in this business, I mean, in stabilizing this kind of problems, they have to do it.
That's right.
Likewise, of course.
Okay. Now, about political year, Mr. Ariana, what industries are likely to be immune or untouched from the political year?
Consumption. Because all people consume. People consume food.
Whether it's political year or not?
Yes, of course. Such as, if you look at the consumption sectors, in this case, we can look at the Unilever, the stock in Jakarta Stock Exchange, and many stocks. Their price is considerably fine or stable. Means that the demand is still there. So we have to cope with it. Either we have to lower the debt, the expense, or getting up the budget. In that case, we have to increase the price. So between that, we have to have a more strategic reviews on that one.
Exactly. So fast-moving consumer goods will be likely to be immune, yeah?
Yes.
And what about the most impacted in this political year?
Construction.
And why is that?
Because construction needs, here, banking is the one most important pillar in having the construction industry well maintained. Most of the property construction industries depending on their loan to the bank. If the bank having this liquidation, such as we have last year, a couple years ago, then the construction is not moving forward.
That's right. Okay. Now we talk about tax incentives.
Okay.
Now talking about facilities, what kind of facilities, other than tax incentives, of course, should be given by the government? Maybe in import or export base?
Could be a tariff.
Tariff.
Yes. So we can do the same or exactly thing that what China has done in 2003. They closed themselves, and then on that year they open up. So they invited foreign companies into their country. Okay, they prepare the infrastructure, the laborers, everything. But then they had this regulation that you can produce your things, your items, your merchandise here, but you cannot market it here. You have to go export. But then the government used this regulation of facility that you have to transfer your technology.
That's right.
And then we can replicate, modify it, we produce it, then we can export.
How feasible do you think such similar method to be implemented in Indonesia?
It depends on the government itself. So if they want to do this, they have to give out again incentives in return of the technology.
That's right. Talking about the transfer of technology
Yes.
again. Okay. How will the transition of government this year affecting investment climate in Indonesia and also the policy making related investment?
Departing that the factors who will be the president, of course, which is, I think, will be a little different between who will be the president.
A little different?
Nah, very little different, the impact on the industry itself. Because we are talking about major industries that is not just being polluted or corrupted by any factors that, okay, let's just say this is political thing, political risk will affecting the demand. This is not going here. The way I see it, this is only about the investment in short term.
In short term?
In long term run, it is going back to normal after, let's just say, 1-2 years. Basically on historical review.
Historical review,
Yes.
okay. So either number 1 or 2, it will be the same.
It will be the same.
Okay. Some say that foreign confidence in 2013's Indonesian capital market has gone down significantly.
Yeah.
What are the causes, do you think?
It is the matter of import due to the rupiah volatility. So we most of industries do at least 60 to 80% of import based on their raw materials, means like more of the 50% processed materials. So we send our raw materials there, they do something about it, process it, and they sell back to us, and we are depending on that.
That's right. So dependency on import is
Yes,
the
the
key.
dependency.
Okay, Mr. Ariana, we'll talk more about strategic investment in the later segment.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere, we still have more discussion. Stay with Revenues International. Welcome back. I'm still with Mr. Ariana Nur Akbar from Monex Invest in the Futures, and we are talking about investment climate in political year. Okay, Mr. Ariana, being from Monex, how to secure gold investment from inflation and currency shocks in this political year?
While we are talking about gold, there will be two classifications on that.
Two classifications.
Yes, we are talking about the contract futures and we are talking about the physical.
Mm-hmm.
So for this instance, it would be wise if you have the trading on the contract futures, you should be maintaining a long-term investment. Because every time you use the futures, in short-term run, it always begins with fluctuations, volatility.
It always.
Okay. Then this will end on the uncertainties. And if you want an investment well good played, you have to make it certain.
Okay.
That is why you have to make it average. It means like you have to do it in long run term.
And what about the physical ones?
The physical ones, it should be like, let's just say monthly. It should be like we have to look at the perspective view of, again, the election of the president itself, of course, and consider it how if we compare it with the interest rates from the Bank of Indonesia and other things such as the fluctuations of the stock price.
That's right. Okay. Then what about other commodities, being from Monex again, in your opinion, traded in the country will flourish or maybe take a hit or boom in 2014?
A boom, well, that is unlikely to happen.
Unlikely to happen in any commodities? In
any commodities because, as I said before, the market players, of course, they have to reconsider the capex, the capital expenditure, the expense they have to consider it. This is an expense they have to conclude in every business details. So if this come up rising, the investment should be most influenced in at least 60 to 80%. 60 to 80%? Yes.
Wow. Then what about the commodities that will likely to be hit?
To be hit? Well, it depends. Severely hit. Okay, severely, I think it contains the raw materials for industries, such as silver, nickel, of course, and this kind of metal contract futures, they are needed in the industries for cables, for electricity, so they have to maintain the price stable.
That's right.
But unlikely and unfortunately, these prices follows the gold commodities prices. Yes, it fluctuates against the US dollar.
Okay, so these two are the commodities that will likely to be severely hit.
Severely hit, yes.
Okay. Coming back to the strategic investment, what will be this most strategic investment instrument at this moment, let's say for short term, mid term, and in the long run?
Okay, in the long run, of course, we have to consider many things. And it is almost impossible to find a strategy.
Okay.
But then you have to consider which one it is most appropriate basing on what the budget you have. So in long term, I think the Jakarta Stock Exchange would be good investment. And in this middle term, or in case of short-term investment or capital gain, I think the physical gold. But then again, for all the commodities, all the assets, all the financial instruments, the more basic important we have to consider is about how fast we can get in, how fast we can get out.
Okay, liquidity.
Liquidity again.
So liquidity is the key. Okay, looking into Indonesian Investment Coordinating Board, or BKPM as we know it, has this board helped to avoid negative investment in the country?
Well, we are talking again about regulations itself. So it will be, the most important thing is regulations. So if they have the budget, they have the relations, the communications. If the regulations is not supporting, it won't stabilize.
It won't stabilize?
No.
Okay. How should investors in commodities, of course, anticipate the sentiment from presidential election to safeguard their investment?
Again, the most important is how to get in, how to get out quickly, liquidity. So they have to choose, even though the investment in contract futures like gold, like silver, they have to consider to do well, like it or not. They have to think about capital gain first.
Capital gain first.
Capital gain first.
Okay. What are the most unliquid commodity traded in the market currently?
I think it's property.
Property.
Yes, because we have too many too many supply, but the bargaining power is still lack of liquidity. So that, for example, we can see apartments, we can see housings, we can see the city houses, town houses. They have more supplies than demand because the interest rates still is ongoing, unstable. Although, of course, the Central Bank of Indonesia said 7.5% is the most effective interest rates. But then it will be differentiated if it goes to any loans from the banking sectors.
Okay. Then what about the most liquid aside from the depositor that is being offered by the banks?
The most liquid, I think the stocks in Jakarta Stock Exchange.
The stock exchange should be the most liquid then.
And of course, also the commodities on the contract futures, because in contract futures, we can withdraw as fast as we can if we see the market is too volatile.
Okay.
But we have to consider which contract futures we should demanding on.
Maybe they should consult with one of the Monex, invest in those.
Yes,
guys.
it is 100%.
Well, what are your last words for the viewers maybe overseas? Should they be worried about elections in a short-term or mid-term basis?
Okay, basically, this is about how, again, liquidity. So we have to consider our cash flow first, maintaining of 20% of the total cash flow. That is the maximum for the investment. And then how quick we can get the return and how we can see the risk occurs before the return itself, we can gain on it. We can get hands on it.
That's right. Okay, so for viewers overseas and home, the best factor to watch out from Mr. Ariana again from Monex Investindo is liquidity. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ariana, for being here in the studio. That was Mr. Ariana Nur Akbar from Monex Investindo Futures talking about investment climate in political year. And up next, we still have some more business and economic updates right after the break. Stay with us.